GM. Welcome to the BrickHaus of Art AllisonJoyful. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. Very grateful to have you here. Wonderful.
So grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Brick.
So, Allison, I know you from bumping around in the GM shows, Twitter Spaces, you're pivotal within Artifacts. But for those that might be meeting you for the first time, can you give me a little bit of a background on yourself as an artist and coming to Web3?
Absolutely. I am a creator by nature. So I've been creating in all the ways for my whole life. Most recently, my greatest creation, my son, Cristiano. And I was, in the depths of pandemic, babyhood, um, and I just found NFTs very just out of my own curiosity. So I was following the news about them and thinking I was interested, but I was also having a 6-month-old baby, so I didn't really have, the I didn't know where to find more other than just, what I was hearing in the media. And I decided to start my job search. So I was coming off of maternity leave after my whole life was dedicated to work and work alone for many, many years. I spent a very calm, but also tumultuous pandemic break on maternity leave with my son. And so I reached out to a recruiter who I very much trusted and just said, this is my situation. I want to work from home. That's kind of my only requirement. So can you help me find something? And she introduced me to Roger Dickerman, and that's how I really went head first into NFTs and became immersed in Web3 culture. So I, you know, work as the lead project manager there. I collect NFTs, I degen a little bit, and I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I'm also a New Yorker, and so I'm always looking for the angle. And and so it was interesting, on the GM show, a lot of what we talked about was just like, oh, we could start a project like this, or we could make a collection like this. And I think a lot of people got inspired there. And so, that was very much my journey as well. Was like, what kind of collection do I want to make? What sort of legacy do I want to leave on the blockchain? And so for me, after going back and forth on a number of different interesting ideas, I decided to start writing my poetry and publishing it on the blockchain. So you were actually one of my very first collectors of
It
My Grave
was.
is an Ocean. Yeah. So that was my really genesis step into becoming a what do I call it? I call it visual poetry. So my first step into becoming a visual poet. And I really always knew when I was going to release the poetry and put it out there that I wanted the imagery to be, very intentional. So I've been through this journey of creating, and I put out an entire collection called Postmortem, and I've done a few different pieces on Tezos. Most recently, I did sort of like a holiday gratitude piece called Your Flowers. And that was also, I think, very inspired by our early community and the Twitter spaces. And recently I did a piece called FUD there. And now, I've returned to Solana, released Devotional, and now Termination for the big event. So that's kind of been my, like, my discography, I guess you could say, my poemography.
I like that, the pomography. There you go.
And it's been really exciting because, I've been around the block a bit. So, before the pandemic, I was very much focused on yoga and teaching yoga as a career, and not being able to physically touch others and connect in the way that we once did, in that very like high vibrational, you know, high fidelity way. When it became through a screen, the magic of sharing yoga sort of was lost to me, and it became, sort of too transactional and too saturated. And I'm a first mover. I love to just, go down the rabbit hole and try to get other people to like see the excitement and the prospect of new technology, or just the new in general. So that's really what made me so excited about being in this Web3 space and wanting to also leave my mark in some way. And so again, I just want to say thank you for collecting one of my very first poems, because I think everyone in this space is dealing with imposter syndrome. Possibly everyone on the globe is dealing with
Probably at
imposter.
this point in the bear. Are we at hopium? There's a little bit of hope. There's some euphoria. I don't know.
That's sometimes just like all you need is just like one person to be like, wow, this is cool. I'm like gonna put it up in my metaverse gallery. And that was huge for me. So thank you, Brick.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for putting beautiful poetry out there. I connected with the piece, my grief is an ocean. I understand the concepts and can empathize and sympathize with the context of what you're writing. What about poetry and speaking on subjects like that? What made you decide poetry and visual poetry at that? Because you're always pairing them with a very, very, very beautiful image. My grief is an ocean. You collaborated with Postwook, right? Who's now in Target. Target. I saw that. That was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah,
Seeing her
totally.
post that up. That was cool. Shout out Postwook. But that was a collab with Postwook, and having like the visual aspect with it. Um, what what made the decision as this is how I want to leave my legacy mark on the blockchain with visual poetry?
A big part of it for me was the art that I was interested to collect was multimedia art. I was always drawn to video, and I was always drawn to the juxtaposition of audio and visual together. And one of the coolest things I thought about, like, coming into the space, was learning about artists who make those beautiful immersive visuals that go with music. So for me, that's really always, it's been for several years how I would like to create, right? And so um, at first I was sort of tying it mostly to images that moved with the rhythm of the piece. And now I've sort of made this transition to making it more about the vocal aspect and letting the audio track drive how the visuals actually appear. So I think that was because, the space I entered into was very much digital artists, 3D artists, photographers, everyone very, focused on visual art. And while I am a lover and appreciator of visual art, and I dabble and, totally enjoy the practice of drawing and painting, I know that's not really like what my offering is. My offering is through, audio, but it's also different than making traditional music. So, my journey through meditation and yoga has really led me to connect deeper and deeper with what it is that I want to express and what do I want to bring into this world. Um, and it's very interesting when you have a major life event, like a child entering your world, it sort of creates this schism, right? Where it's like you need to really decide what is important to you and how you want to be, because you have this little being now sort of like examining your every move. And if you're bullshitting around and not in alignment, they see it so clearly and so quickly, especially in this day and age when we're working from home. And you know what I mean? We're like,
Mhm.
it's our priorities as parents a lot of the time is just being there for our children instead of being taken away by, another force, if you will. So for me, that's been a journey over the past couple of years of just like, seeing how I can be more authentically myself, honestly, because as a woman, I feel the pressure to people please. And I know that in my life, I'm a, you know, big code switcher. Either thinking that the way I am is not appropriate for certain spheres like the corporate world, or the way you need to be responsible around your family, or whatever it is, however you shift and change based on how you want to be for your audience. So for me, making the art is so much about, I want to say what I want to say in the way that I want to say it. So I reject any sort of style restrictions or formatting restrictions. And I just come to each piece from a totally new perspective. And poetry is like that for me. It just comes out. It's not something I really plan. The pieces that I have planned always end up sort of falling flat for me if I'm focused too much on, like language or like sending a message. The pieces that are most raw and just most real, I think end up being the most powerful. And that's why I wanted to submit Termination, because it was very much about a fire inside of me. And I think inside a lot of women and probably just a lot of humans, regardless of gender, just that feeling of being restricted and constrained through an outside force that you didn't authorize.
Before we get into that, I want to ask you, do you think Web3 offers you that exploration to spur that fire to get that freedom and independence beyond what is socially been constructed for women and mothers within the workforce? Is it empowering you? Is there a way to empower? Is this the frontier where we get empowerment and equity in that way?
Well, I mean, there's always hope, there's always the opportunity. And as we know, some people are able to harness that opportunity and use it for exactly whatever their means are. And some people are not able to. In some ways, yes, I have found freedom through this, web of whatever we're creating together. And other ways it has reinforced how I see, the bondage that we as humans, or however we identify, constantly come up against. And, that's really the point, is to keep seeing that and keep breaking it and keep moving towards the ultimate. So yes and no.
Yes and no, yes and no for now. Well, you're such an explorer and a pioneer, and I think with women and mother leaders like yourself, you take the hands of those that didn't think it was possible. So you're exploring and pioneering this wild west of Web3, and I hope that through maybe someone gets to know you through this and they get inspired through your story of you know, uh refinement, rebirth, and exploration of this human experience. And I love how you're taking something so human and intimate, and you're bringing it, and you're thinking about how can I bring it into the digital way with it. I want to talk about this piece that you submitted. It's such a beautiful piece. I'm very fortunate and humbled that you want to include this for the submission. Go ahead. All right. Termination. I'm gonna let it play, and then let's talk about it hereafter.
The way you fuck me, rough and hard and mercilessly, is not what you give to me, but in what you deny me. Fingers wrapped around my throat, arms pinned down by strangled wrists, mouth shoved full so far to choking. Aroused by our violent union, shrouded in shadow, secrecy, and shame, I fantasize fighting you, my careless, dangerous lover, who pulls my hair, slaps my face, and doesn't look back.
Powerful.
Very. It brings up a lot for me to just, watch that like that.
I apologize. I just kind of brought it up. I was like, all right, let's talk about
No,
it.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, but there's nothing I can do to to just hear. It's such a surreal experience to hear your own voice recorded.
Hmm.
I was a singer in my past lives, and when I started recording as a singer, I was always just like, no way, this is not it. I'm strictly a live singer.
Strictly, I don't want to hear myself back. I'll just sing for you. So tell me, how do you feel listening back, and tell me about the how you came about producing this piece. What
Man,
what
such
you're
a
comfortable
long,
with.
varied story. Sure, the nature of how a poem is born is just so complex, So this poem came out of me right after Roe versus Wade was overturned. And it was also right after, some meetup. And, so there's always that surge of energy that comes from being IRL with people that you're usually just talking to online all the time. It was also, when I had produced a major event, and so there was that, that anticipation and all of that lead up, and then the climax of the event, and then it was over. And so I was at home and kind of just like feeling all of that, and then we got the news about Roe v. Wade, and just it came out so quickly and easily. And at that time I knew it had to have something to do with fire. And so I was trying to film the fire in my fire pit in my backyard to pair it with what was in my mind. But I didn't, it wasn't hitting for me. And, I was still very much exploring that. And so, um, when you put out the call for artists for this theme, I said, oh, I should definitely finish Termination and use that. It's going to be a perfect combo. And so now in this day and age, I'm exploring AI. So I found I actually used a stock video that I found from, free video tip the creator site. I forget what it was called. I'll give it to you though. And then I fed that into Kyber AI with the track that I recorded and then mixed with the fire effect. So that sort of led, the the stylization of the wildfire that this person had filmed and kind of put out there as CCO. And then I used, a few editing tools and kind of got that more dark sort of feel. And then when I was, before that, when I was recording the poem, normally I read poetry much more slowly. And this one felt like it had to punch a little bit and come out a little bit more like a spoken word style rather than, a lot of my other pieces are more meditative. And I do have, it does have that, ASMR aspect to it, but it's definitely like a departure from, let's say, devotional or your flowers, which are very, different end of the spectrum. So, there's a lot of fire in this piece. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of also acceptance of like your lot. I mean, a big theme of all of my work is emptiness, which is what I study as a Buddhist over and over and over, just trying to understand that. So, there's that, the piece about my careless, dangerous lover, where it's almost like, even though you're going to hurt me, I'll keep coming back.
Mhm.
And,
It's kind of like playing
I
with
think that's all.
fire.
Yeah, it's playing with fire, and it's a metaphor for like how we treat our earth, which we obviously love and go to for sustenance and support, but we continue to rape and pillage and destroy. I have a lot of thoughts on that, as an environmentalist and a vegan and someone who's always striving to conserve and recycle and, just as you see the world, you say to yourself, is it even worth it? Because look at all the junk and what, just because I don't eat meat, like, how is that going to help? But, that's part of the whole thing is saying, like, well, I can only do what I can do. So maybe making a poem may save the next forest fire. I don't know.
Maybe, or
It
maybe,
contributes. It's
maybe
all
it
a drop,
sparks a
right?
fire in a young woman's life and she gets inspired from it and she goes on to lead something incredibly successful and return that versus Wade. And maybe she's inspired by your art. Maybe
Absolutely.
that's what
Yeah.
we can hope as artists, right? To inspire that change that we want to see, to connect with those that connect with us,
Yeah. Hopefully make the change ourselves, right?
right? And I love how you talk about you needed to come punchy and come strong with it, and you start off strong, opening line, and then talk when you fuck me, and then when you have the hands wrapped around the neck. Can you tell me about some of these lines and where you're coming up with, like, because this is definitely contrasting compared to, like, let's say My Grief is an Ocean or something, one of your other poems. It's very much a contrast. Can you tell me a little more on that edge and that fire that stems from that?
Yes.
I'm poking for more. I
You
want,
are
I
poking at
am,
bear.
I am. Watch out for Mama Bear.
Well, Brick, for me, fire has been such a big part of my spiritual practice for the past few years. And um, let me just show you my tattoo. It's a
Look at
volcano.
that. That's fire.
That's fire, right?
That's fire. Oh yeah,
So
that is cool. That's cool. Is a specific volcano that you have represented there, or it's just
just
tell me more.
volcano energy. Um, and my teacher is coming. We'll do a fire ceremony tomorrow night. I often lead fire ceremony on retreat and for my spiritual community. And it's very clarifying, right? I've been talking a lot, and one of my friends said, anger is clarifying. So like fire and anger to me are related in that they can burn through toxicity and bullshit so that you can actually get to the root of what's happening or like the cause of something. And sometimes you need the destruction in order to reveal, right,
Yeah.
what the true essence are. So for me, a lot of these lines are coming from, just that like cycle of seeing how patterns in your life and tricks that keep showing up and you keep falling for, or something that feels very good but is actually very bad for you. Obviously, like, a lot of the undoing is realizing that, desire is not a bad thing, but a lot of what we're fed says that there's certain things that we're not allowed to have or do or be. So I feel like a lot of that is like, just seeing where you're getting fucked and trying to get out of it.
Right.
So I wanted to use that metaphor that just sort of gives you a very visceral feeling of like being constrained, restricted, that your freedom is being taken away. And, but also like, how are you allowing that, or how are you inviting that? Um, you know, the duality of being the victim and the oppressor, or, the Stockholm syndrome kind of, you know what I mean? Because we are attracted to things that are not good for us.
Of
And,
course.
that's a
There's a
sad
little bit of
truth
that.
of life. Exactly. And it's kind of just like a sad truth of life that we, in some way, hopefully can accept instead of just struggling with forever and ever and ever until we die. And sometimes we just say, oh, well, that's the thing that I have to keep working on. And I know my plight. So there's one thing I've surmounted. I don't know. I'm not like a positive vibes only kind of person, right? I study death meditation, and I like look at suffering as, the source of truth, and how to reveal really what your, hero's adventure is for your lifetime. So I think it's important for me to show up as an artist who brings up things like that, and who makes you think about death, or um, power dynamics, and how we can, keep analyzing what's going on and choosing intentionally where we want to go next.
I love that. I appreciate that. And again, grateful to have Termination featured in the BrickHaus Art That's Fire pop-up gallery. Make sure to click all the links below to make sure you go check out the Metaverse Gallery, go experience this piece yourself in person, September 9th at the Starbucks off Folsom and Dawes. Again, all the appropriate information is down below. You're going to want to be there in person as well as in the Metaverse. It's going to be a great time. Allison, it's been wonderful getting to catch up with you. We definitely got to get to this again sometime soon. How can they follow you? How can they get in touch with you for more art beyond the BrickHaus of Art?
Oh, you can get in touch with me on Twitter at AllisonJoyful_. I'm also on Instagram. And, I'm just kind of all over the place. You can find my art on Exchange Art. You can find it on object.com, on the Tezos blockchain. And I have a few pieces as part of the post-mortem visual poetry collection on OpenSea on the Ethereum blockchain.
Conquering all the chains, tri-chains. You got Ethereum, you got Tezos, and you got Solana right there. Go get it, your girl Allison Joyful. Make sure to hit those subscribe buttons for the YouTubes down below. Make sure to hit all the notifications when you go follow Allison on the Instagrams and on the Twitters. Do you have any closing comments for anybody? Any advice?
No, Jess, I really love you, Brick. Thank you so much. You really make me feel great. And thanks for seeing the moms out there just trying to not be just moms. But even though moms are the maha.
Right? Well, you know why? Because moms are tough as bricks. Moms are tough as bricks.
Real.
They put the house together. They keep the house together. They keep everybody saying, you know what? If it wasn't for Mama Brick, I don't know rightly where I'd be at today. I'm
Well,
not.
I can't wait to see Mama Brick again.
Mama Brick plays too many tricks on me. She's crafty. I'll tell you that much. Oh, well, we definitely have to catch up and do this again soon. Again, grateful for your time. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. When you go outside this weekend and you touch that grass, or for you touching that sand, that Florida sand, and you get that tan, that sun-kissed tan, you got them Florida oranges. There's an orange, this delicious orange. You squirt, get that orange juice. Another orange juice. Touch that grass. Pick up that trash, because without earth there is no art. Hey, and pick up them fishing lines. I see fish, I see dolphins, I see all kinds of marine aquatic animals with that shit on there. Don't do that. Come on, be kind to yourselves. Pick up that trash. No earth, no art. GM.
GM.